Hello and welcome to the agenda. I am Ajay Kaul. Today we will discuss about the ongoing talks between Afghan government and Taliban to decide the future course of Afghanistan and what it means for India. The Afghan government and Taliban are currently engaged in negotiations that will decide the future course of war-torn country. Ostensibly, the negotiations are being conducted with the aim of ushering in peace in Afghanistan. But the fact is that it will bring the terrorist group Taliban into the mainstream. And who knows, the Taliban may even assume power in Afghanistan. That scenario is not going to be good for India, which has stakes in that country. So, in the agenda today, we will try to analyze this issue. We have with us retired diplomat Ambassador Ashok Sajanhar and retired Group Captain of the Air Force MJA Vinod. But before we begin our conversation, let's have a look at this report.
Since September 12, the Afghanistan government and Taliban have been holding rounds of talks to discuss how to usher in peace in the war-torn country. According to reports, the Taliban has prepared a 22-article proposal to be included in the agenda of the talks. But the Afghan government has said that a ceasefire is the most important demand that its team wants to add to the agenda. The way for these intra-Afghan peace talks was paved by the February 29 deal between the US and Taliban, which entails phased withdrawal by the American troops from Afghanistan after 19 years and release of 5,000 Taliban cadres from prison, among other things. US Special Representative for Afghanistan Reconciliation, Zalmay Khalilzad, has been the key negotiator in the crucial process, whose outcome will be an impact on India strategically. The implications for India would be serious if the current process in Afghanistan leads to Taliban taking power. Taliban primarily is a terrorist group, is a proxy of Pakistan and hence inimical towards India. Its previous tenure in power between 1996 and 2001 saw Afghanistan becoming a backyard of Pakistan for terrorist activities targeted against India. Pakistan, in an attempt to avoid the global scrutiny, had set up terror training camps in Afghanistan, and it's here that Jaish-e-Mohammed outfit was given birth. Those activities would most likely be revived if Taliban were to assume power in Afghanistan. Also, India has huge stakes in Afghanistan, which would be hurt if Taliban comes to power there. After the Taliban rule was eliminated by the US-led coalition in December 2001, India launched a massive program in Afghanistan for capacity building. India launched a massive program in Afghanistan for capacity building. India's 400 projects at the cost of $3 billion are spread all over Afghanistan. To sum up the scenario, External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar recently noted that there is no part of Afghanistan untouched by India. Given this scenario, the intra-Afghan talks assume immense significance for India. Bureau Report.
Now, let's welcome our guests, Ambassador Sajanhar and Group Captain Vinod. Welcome to the program, both of you, sir. I'll first ask Ambassador Sajanhar. You must be aware of the ongoing talks in Doha between Afghan government and Taliban. So, from Indian point of view, how should we see the talks?
Well, the talks have been going on since September. And even before that, when the peace deal, so-called peace deal, was signed between the United States and the Taliban on the 29th of February, then we had expressed our reservations and concern as far as this deal is concerned. Because for quite some time, the attempt was being made to differentiate between good terrorists, bad terrorists, between a good Taliban and a bad Taliban. And and in fact, even Prime Minister Modi on many occasions has mentioned that there can be no differentiation. A Taliban is a Taliban, a terrorist. So getting into an agreement with them, jumping into bed with them is not the right approach to bring a peace reconciliation in this process. But then, of course, the international community has really got tired. They have developed a sense of fatigue as far as Afghanistan is concerned, because the war has been going on now. This war, the global war on terror, as it was called, has been going on for the last 90 years. And even before that, for 20 years, this country has been in civil war and conflict. So obviously, the international community also wishes to get out of here, disengage from here. So when this agreement was signed, well, reluctantly we did welcome it. In fact, our ambassador in Qatar was a participant at the signing ceremony on the 29th of February. And we were hoping that this is a good chance, there's a good chance to peak if it is an intra-Afghan negotiating process that can result in a ceasefire and peace. Good. But so far, we've seen there have been a number of hiccups and obstacles to get the talk starting. And even now, when the talks, as I said, began in September, hardly any progress has been made. And what we would have thought that the first there would be a ceasefire, and then there would be negotiations in terms of sharing of power or what sort of constitutional mechanism would be there in the country. But the Taliban doesn't seem to think this way. They under the impression that ceasefire is an element of negotiations. And they feel that by launching more fierce attacks, they can have control over larger spans of territory. And hence, they will be able to come to power through sheer force and violence that they've been doing. So we see that in the third quarter of this year, from June to September, the violent attacks and the number of deaths in Afghanistan has been 50% more than happened in the second, that is from April to June. So the violence is increasing, there is no fire. So it doesn't bode well as far as peace in that country is concerned. We, of course, hope that we have said that the gains of the last 19 years in terms of the democratic system, in terms of the women to girls to as far as education is concerned and openness is concerned, that those gains are preserved. So it is Afghanistan today really is at an inflection point, and we'll really have to wait and see as to how these talks and these negotiations.
Okay, Group Captain Vinod, as you heard Ambassador Sajanhar giving an overview about the situation. So, as he said that we have to watch out. How do you think, I mean, what are the strategic implications that for India?
Thank you, Ajay ji, and thank you, Ambassador Sajanar. We've been co-panelists many times.
Indeed, it's a thank you.
Let me give you a slightly a bigger picture.
Right.
2016, I think September 2016, a similar peace process happened. What happened after the similar peace process with that group called Hizb Islami? There is, like Ambassador said, there is no good Taliban and bad Taliban. I'll tell you why. The Taliban itself is an Islamic emirate of Afghanistan, and it follows a particular. A good Taliban follows Book A, bad Taliban follows Book B, which will not happen because then good Taliban is no longer a Taliban.
And if I may point out that Group Captain Vinod, I may point out that both books are provided by Pakistan. Let us not miss that
Absolutely.
point.
Absolutely. And I have no qualms in saying this. The seeds of this was sown decades earlier by the CIA. That is where the root of the problem started. Now, how do we sort out this problem as the world comes together to sort it out? Is not get these groups together, have some peace talks, because we have seen over decades these peace talks have not prevailed and it always failed. We even permitted Taliban to be part of the head of the organization of the country went from bad to worse to worse. The women rights, human rights, everything went out of the window, and the world closed its eyes till 9/11 happened. Until that time, people were not bothered what was happening in that country, what was happening to human rights in that country. They left Afghanistan alone, and that is how it has been for eons, for centuries. We have left that part of the country like that. As humans, we have to look at the root cause of the problem. And the root cause of the problem, Ajayji and Ambassador, in my mind, is three basic needs that we have as world, as a united organization. I don't want to call it UN. As united people of this area, we have not taken it to that place. And that is education, basic living condition, and the women right. If these three, I mean, आप एक महिला को शक्तिशाली बनाओगे किसी भी देश में, you will notice that that country will prosper. Bring education to that country, in maybe half a decade to a decade, that country will prosper. If we do not attack this problem,
But
at
Group
the
Captain,
root level,
if I may
it
interrupt
will
you
never
here.
get sorted out.
Yeah, if I may interrupt you here, you are talking about idealism, but Taliban talks about Islamization. They want Islamic country where Sharia is followed and strictly followed. They don't
It is
believe in
not.
all these things.
I know it is. It is not easy. Not going to be an easy road, Ajayji. It has to be, a slow and a steady process. And iske alawa, there is. I mean, I agree. It is an idealism. Absolutely, I am with you that it is an idealistic thought process. But there is no other way. Centuries have proven it to us.
Right.
Centuries have proven it to us. He used area mein, as long as till 9/11 happened, what happened? Now, US elections and everything again is going back to a power vacuum. Once again, we are looking at bringing Taliban to power just because somebody thousands of kilometers away changed. I hope is walks the middle path. He does not pull out people so fast that Trump promised that he will pull out, because this quick pull out of US troops will create a vacuum. That vacuum will bring Taliban to power, and I totally echo what Ambassador said.
Okay, Ambassador Sajjanar, as Group Captain also talked about American role. Role is the most crucial, which I believe. I feel that they have actually, it's a kind of deceit. They fought against Taliban for 19 years. It was a terrorist group against whom it was hunting. Which it was hunting, and suddenly they realized that it can be brought into mainstream, and we have to leave. That was the Trump card, rather. I'll say. So, is the transition? The Biden comes in. When Biden comes in, so how do you see that situation changing, or the deal will stay, or he will maybe revisit that deal?
So, what you said, the Americans have been trying to get Taliban into the negotiations for quite some time, even before that. And, although when Trump came, let's not go into the time of Obama and, around that time. But when Trump came right in the beginning of the years also, if you remember his South Asian strategy in August of 2017, when he said that I'm going to increase the number of troops in Afghanistan,
Right.
and I will not be governed by any time frame. I will be governed only by the outcome. That is, whenever we are able to achieve it, then only we are going to withdraw. But that did not happen. And then slowly he realized that he wants to reach out to the Taliban. He has to go to Pakistan, because otherwise there is, since as you mentioned yourself, Pakistan is controlling Taliban. And he wanted to do it for his own political purposes, as Captain said very rightly, that this was really the agreement of 29th of February was really a fig leaf to mask the quick American withdrawal from there. So this is what was able to achieve, and he thought it would be, he would be able to fulfill one of his campaign promises, and that will stand him in good stead as far as the elections are concerned, which took place on the 3rd of November. But obviously, he was able to do that, and he was able to sign a deal. But it didn't do him much good as far as elections are concerned. Now, what he's wanting to do is he wants to, skew the situation and muddy the ground for Mr. Biden, so that there are certain new facts that are created on the ground for Biden, so which he'll find difficult to get out of. And looking at the new presidency, what I think is, even in 2009, when there was a surge that Obama had spoken about, that we increase the number of troops in Afghanistan, Biden was opposed to that. But has always been in favor of a withdrawal from Afghanistan. So, like all the things that Trump has made in West Asia, for instance, as far as Israel, recognition of Jerusalem capital, the sovereignty of Israel over West Bank, over Golan Heights, that part of West Bank, Golan Heights, and so forth, the normalization of relations in Israel and Bahrain, Sudan, and even maybe even Saudi Arabia and on and so forth. So those are all aspects that definitely Biden is going to overturn. Here also, if he faced with this prospect that most of the troops are withdrawn by 15th of January, and that just about 2,500 left, I don't think Mr. Biden will reverse it. He will acquiesce in it. He will accept it. He will agree to it. But I think what will happen is that Biden will place a very strong counter-terrorism force in Afghanistan, because the only obstacle, the only barrier that stands in the way of Taliban to occupy power by force is the presence of American forces. Now, of course, it's not to say the Afghan National Security Forces are not doing a great job. They are, but they really need still the support of the international community in terms of funding, in terms of training, in terms of providing equipment. Like that, Mr. Biden and NATO forces, the General of NATO, Jens Stoltenberg, he has said, whether the Americans are out or in, the NATO is going to stay inside and to train, to equip, as far as Afghan national forces are concerned, to work with them to try to restore and promote peace, law, and order in the country. So I think it's going to be a very, very uncertain situation, but definitely that Biden will put some element of counterterrorism force, which will continue to help the Afghan government in Kabul and ensure that it just doesn't topple over once the American forces leave.
Right. So, Group Captain Vinod, as we talked about American urgency, I mean Trump urgency, I'll say, to leave Afghanistan because of the electoral promise. But in that process, he even, shocked his allies, NATO allies, who were kept almost in the dark, and they have reacted badly that you took a decision and we are nowhere. How do you see that?
Sir, two things. One, that the internal politics of United States is on whose decision hinges hundreds and thousands of life or probably peace of the region. Is it a good situation? Is my first question. And the second question is this peace jirga, this peace process. We have seen this come and go umpteen number of times. It serves only two purposes, sir. One is a tactical pause that
No,
these Taliban want.
I may say that earlier processes were different because this is the US brokered, that may I may say, US brokered peace process.
I want to see when Joe Biden comes on chair, what happens then. Because it is not going to be a knee-jerk reaction when Joe Biden comes on. Joe Biden, as I see, is going to be a man of reason. He will take all his allies with him, including his NATO allies with him. He will listen to everybody and take a decision. Will this pullout happen before that? I really have my doubt, because you may sign whatever you want to sign. So many people will come back, a new, fresh set of people will join in, and a tactical pause. Probably Taliban will gain some ground if these 15 military bases are as promised, going to be closed down. There will be a tactical vacuum in that area, which could be occupied by the Taliban. उनको फिर से खदेड़ दिया जाएगा. This is what is going to happen. But again, I come back to what I originally said. If lasting peace needs to be brought to that region, we as the regional powers or regional co-powers, we have to work together. Second aspect I want to bring, which is the sinister design of Pakistan, is they can't support the Uyghur Muslims directly. My fear is they will bring these Uyghur Muslims from China into the northern regions of Afghanistan and support them there. That is my fear, and that is what I think is Pakistan's design in Muslims without rubbing on the backside or rubbing on the wrong side of the big brother China.
Okay, Ambassador Sajjanar.
Let's watch it, wait and watch.
Yeah, Ambassador Sajjanar, you talked about hiccups in the process. So there are hiccups because Taliban wants 5,000 of its cadres to be released, and some countries like France, Australia are opposing it, since some of them have been responsible for the killing of their soldiers. So that is one of the I mean issues which is sticking, I mean causing the hindrance, stumbling block. And maybe it could also be, as we talked about Biden presidency coming in, maybe the Afghan government is dragging the talks to see what the Biden administration thinks about the whole process. Am I right in that?
Ajay, I don't think really that the Afghan government is in that sense in the driver's seat, because this would
No,
give the
not in the
impression
driver,
that
not in the driver's seat, but when they don't agree to release of prisoners, it causes this, I mean, problems in their talks.
Absolutely.
So there is a
no,
deadlock.
let us face it. Let us face it, Ajay, that the Afghan government never agreed to release the prisoners. It came to them as a fait accompli,
Right.
meaning it was like a fiat that came to them from Americans. Now it is
It's a
those
dictator.
are the people who have killed. These are the terrorists who have who have carried out all these terrorist activities in your country, and then you are just ordered from above that you release all these 5,000 prisoners. So there are going to be those issues. There are going to be problems. I don't think that you can really point a finger of blame at the Afghan government and say that they are being unreasonable. Not at all. I think, on the contrary, they by legitimizing the role of the Taliban, in my view, the Americans had very significantly brought down the relevance and the status and authority of a democratically elected government in
True.
Kabul.
Yeah, right.
And I think that is what there has been this inequality between the standing of the two. And the second aspect is that was the initial hiccup that I spoke about. Now that hiccup has gone. We have already overcome that. All prisoners that have been released. They have released, Afghan government has released 5,000, Taliban has released 1,000, so whatever it was, that is why it from February 29, early March up to September, for all these hiccups to be sort of taken care of, all these obstacles to be sort of gone over. So now all that is behind us. But right now, it is the situation is like this, that as you mentioned, Taliban continues to carry on these terrorist attacks. To carry on.
Offensive, yeah.
It does not want to agree to a ceasefire, and it wants that through use of violence and force, it should be able to continue to expand the area under its control, so that it is able to dislodge Kabul government and maintain power there,
Right, right.
maintain power there. And by withdrawal from there, what the Americans are telling the Taliban is, as you please, and we are not going to be. So I think this is a very, very important thing that's going around to the world.
So we are running out of time. Group Captain Vinod, you wanted to say something on the same thing, same question, I think.
No, I'll take a little bit of a detour.
Yeah.
Now let's see the role of Pakistan and how it impacts us. I'm being a little selfish in this matter. How it is going to impact
So
us
that's a
as the
very
East.
important, very important.
The role of Pakistan, in my view, is that it is showing something and it is doing something else. That is my view. It is talking about peace in Afghanistan. It is talking about all big things, but the underlying reason for it is to bring a puppet government there.
To create
That
a
is
proxy
what is
government there,
my
yes.
proxy government there, which is going to side with their interest, which I feel in 99% of possibilities that it will not happen. US will not, it will happen. We are now big enough to have some say in the matter. But be that as it may, the second aspect is going to be these people. I mean, if it cannot happen, these people will find havens in the northern regions of Pakistan, and those could, I hope not, that those getting diverted towards the Kashmir side, as we saw, a decade ago, is something we should be watching out for. It's
Right.
something that could, in times come pan out.
Yeah.
ये हमको बहुत जरूरी ध्यान रखना है, and we have to really be hawk-eyed on this particular aspect, that how do we stop this menace that could ensue as this vacuum gets created.
Right. So
That
we have to be watchful what games are being played and what the outcome of the talks will be, because it will have implications on us directly. But thank you both of you for participating in this debate today. This is all in the agenda today. Thanks for watching. I'll be back with another important topic tomorrow. Till then, goodbye.